And now, live from the Smashing Piston Studios, it's Piston Talking. This week, we talk to Lawrie from Lawrie's Marvellous Mechanicals.
No, it's Lawrie's Mechanical Marvels.
It's what? Oh, okay. This week, we speak to Lawrie from Lawrie's Mechanical Marvels.
Good evening, people, and welcome to Piston Talking, episode 2 or 3 for you people that don't speak that Frenglish. And as you would have noticed there from the intro, we've got Lawrie, and here is Lawrie. Welcome.
Hello.
And yes, I got your channel name right the second time on the intro, and then I cleverly edited in someone in the editing suite telling me that I got it wrong.
I quite enjoyed that. I listened to it. I went, "Oh, really?" and then I laughed. I was like, "Oh, that was really good. That was smooth." I enjoyed it.
Obviously, yes.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. It's all part of it of that thing.
So yes, welcome, and you do know what you've let yourself in for, because I've just explained what you let yourself in for. But
I was going to go, no, not a clue.
So, just for the purposes of everybody in the chat, who, I mean, I assume everybody in the chat already knows who you are. I mean, come on, you're like a megastar on the internet.
People say this, and I don't really see myself as that. I'm just an idiot. So
just an idiot. All right, you're a mega idiot of the internet.
I mean that's not too much of an exaggeration. I am certainly a mega idiot.
So, without further ado, I will play the first intro video, which is really the second intro video, isn't it? Anyway, I'll press play now.
Who are you? Who are you, our kid? Who are you?
So, who are you?
I don't know. So, for those who don't know, I am a YouTuber who has a fascination with old machines. So I like all things that are old and weird, particularly the railways. And I have a YouTube channel where we kind of try to promote people getting involved with old stuff, particularly the railways, and buying silly vehicles like, I don't know, a fire engine, because who'd be daft enough to buy a fire engine, or multiple tractors, or multiple locomotives. Yeah, it's one of my friends at one point said that I had a serious problem, and the older I get and the more I do this, the more I realize that actually he was right.
I mean, do you still count him as a friend if he told you you'd got a problem? Because a friend would surely say something like, "You've got a problem, you're buying too many tractors. Have you seen this other tractor that's for sale?"
Yeah, that's kind of the level of friends. To be fair, my mum did that with one vehicle I've got to turn up on the channel. Which is like, "Oh, there's a such and such on one of the walks I've been on. You'd be interested in that." So I was like, "Yes, I would. We should go on a walk, and I shall take a note to leave on it. Or can I give you this note to leave on it?" "Oh, yeah, of course I'll do that." And long story short, I ended up bringing this vehicle home. So that's an adventure for another day. I was like, "Thanks, Mum." Of all the people, you should probably be saying, "Time to reel it back now." But no, there we go. Mum's part of the problem as well. So that's
See, my mum's not bothered about cars or bikes or machines at all. My dad's kind of the person that was into the classic cars and stuff like that. What was your influence into machinery?
Not a clue. My dad has a nursery with growing plants, so he has zero interest in machines, and my mum is vaguely aware what a car is. My uncle used to train spot in his youth, but it's disappeared as he's got older. So it's never been. We've talked about trains, but he's like the modern scene. So I have absolutely no idea where it's come from. My brother has. My brother had no interest, although he's now he lives in Canada now, and he has now kind of that mechanical awareness awakened in him. I think particularly because he stopped wanting to take his cars into the garage and he started working on himself. So you get a phone call at like 2 o'clock in the morning of, "Oh, Lawrie, I've got a problem with the car. What does this do?" I'm like, "Yeah." I thought you were dying. It's 2 a.m. here. Oh, sorry. Did I wake you? Well, yes. What's the problem? Oh, it's this. Oh, right. You need to check this. Try that. Try that. Oh, okay.
Do you think it's Ringo Starr's fault then that you like trains so much?
Oh, that's the only story I have. Apparently, when I was 2, I saw Edward from Thomas the Tank Engine in the post office window, and since then, that's it. So yeah, those stories have an awful lot to answer for.
They do, they don't, because I'm pretty sure there weren't that many episodes with Ringo Starr narrating them. So didn't he only do first series or something?
He did the latter series. It's been a long time since I've watched them. It's a long time. It's a part of the childhood. I think he did. Oh, I can't remember who did the other voice either. Somebody will tell me, I'm sure, in the chats, because I can't remember these things.
But every time I see Thomas, obviously everybody always thinks Ringo Starr's voice.
Oh yeah,
it was another Liverpudlian that did the other person voice. The other person voice, the other person that had a voice, even, Simon. Come on. Yeah, so if somebody knows in the chat, they could definitely put it in there. But probably not.
I can't remember. It's from my youth. I can't remember these things, you see.
So what first sort of kicked you off into doing YouTube then?
Well, it all basically started. I was helping. Well, my background is I used to work in film, so I used to work in the film industry and do filmy things like making low budget films. But that was my job. And the problem was, in order to succeed in the film industry, you have to live and breathe it. There must be nothing else in your life apart from film, making more film. And I quite liked cars and tractors and trains, and so it'd be like, oh, I could do that, or I could not do that and go to this railway or do a turn on the footplate. So it was never. I never lived and breathed as much as I should have done, and because of that, I never got the big breaks that you kind of need. And then the big thing for me was I worked with a guy and said, right, we're going to Canada. Keep your summer clear. We're going to Canada. It's going to be. I'm taking you out there for 6 months and paying you an obscene amount of money. I was like, this is it. And then it didn't happen. Oh, it's going to happen in the autumn. And I'm like, okay, I've said no to all my normal work, and you're only as good as your last job. So if they get somebody else to do my role, unless they totally royally muck it up, they won't ask me back because they'll go with this other bloke. And so I did that and kind of sat there and was like through autumn. I was like, "Are we going?" He said, "No, it'll probably be next year." Like, great. So I've said no to like 9 months worth of work now. So I was getting annoyed with the industry and doing small jobs. I bumped into JM on Cars. I was chatting to him. We shared, just general interest in machines and blah, blah, blah. And he went, I've had enough of this industry. I'm going to give it up. I'm going to start doing YouTube. And I'm like, you're an idiot, but fine.
But fine.
Why would you give up a decent job and try doing YouTube where there's no guarantee of success? But whatever. But we stayed mates and chatted, and he suggested, would you be interested in kind of helping me with the channel? And I went, well, I like cars. Yeah, sure. Then I bought my second fire engine, and he came with me to film, picking that up, and we became really good mates. And so I started doing YouTube with him on his channel. And I think between us, we grew JM on Cars to about the 20,000 subscriber mark. Okay. And then he went off to America, and he didn't take me with him and left me in charge of the channel. And I found that I much preferred making content that I wanted to and being in front of the channel, in front of the camera, than being behind the camera filming. And also, it meant I could feature the stuff that I liked, because there's plenty of vehicles I really do care about. But we were looking at things like what can I say that won't offend somebody? Like Kias and Polos and stuff that was brand new, but kind of entry level cars, and it doesn't interest me at all. I like the old stuff and the weird stuff. And so when I was filming that, you'd be sat there with the camera being like, what? And I would do the same thing as some of my guys do. Is like, what did I say there about? I don't know.
He just zoned out.
So some stuff was good. Like, I got to drive so many cars, and I got to drive basically everything in the Lotus range. Got to drive Ferraris. Got to drive Bentleys. Like so many cool things that I got to drive, and high end cars that I'd never get the opportunity to otherwise. but it just wasn't for me. And so we then started trialing me doing some stuff on his channel of my kind of content. So looking at things like dump trucks, road rollers, the fire engines. Yeah. And it at the time, I was very upset that when he said, no, we're not doing this, but it totally wasn't his audience. And I can see when I've tried doing stuff like that and you try something new and it doesn't work and it hurts the channel. And he went, right, I've set you up your own channel. You're going to have your own thing. And I was like, but I don't want to do this.
So you railroaded into it.
But yeah, it's pretty much was like, you're doing your own channel. I was like, well, I don't want to do my own channel. I'm quite happy helping you with your channel. Like this is, and but I felt put out by the fact that he didn't want me on his channel. I know, well, we'll see what happens. And I think we started off because we did a big thing of right, Lawrie's not going to do anything more on German cars. He's going to be doing stuff on LMM, and I think I started with like 500 subscribers who came across from his channel, and that was a huge boost because it's you're making content to start off with, and you've got an audience who like what you're doing because they've seen you already and they understand you. So that was a huge boost for the channel to start doing that. So it was a really big thing. And then I've just made more and more poor decisions, and here we are.
So you mentioned then when you bought your second fire engine. So is the one that you've done the recent video on, was that your second fire engine then?
No, that's my first. That's Duke's VRS. So the second one was how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? So Dupes, when I bought it, so I'm sure you know this as a vehicular person, but for anybody in the chat who doesn't understand these things, if you go to buy a vehicle and when you turn up it's running, that is a bad sign. When I turned up and saw my fire engine and it was running, I just went, oh, fire engine. And I'd taken a friend of mine who was a mechanic with me to kind of give me some idea. Yeah. And I'd basically said as we walked in, if it's got Dennis, because the guy who was selling it couldn't get any photos. He couldn't work out how to send photos on Gumtree, I think.
All right, okay.
Gumtree. So I had an idea of what it was I was looking at, but I didn't know what it was. And I was like, if it's got Dennis written across the front, I'm having it. And sure enough, turned up, I'm like, it's got Dennis on the front, I'm having it. So we drove it along, took it for a drive round to the industrial estate where it was, and I put my foot on the brake in the same way you would my Peugeot 106, to which I say you stamp on the brake. And this is air-operated brakes, air over hydraulic. It just went, stop! and it was terrifying because there's a bar over the windscreen for the passenger side. He was against that. My mate who was in the back was basically in the front. And I thought that this was obviously a sign that this was a great vehicle to buy. So I acquired that. And my plan initially wasn't YouTube. It was to do proms and weddings with it. Have it as a little, And I did a wedding. I was booked in to do a wedding with it. It wasn't a wedding. I did a day Ipswich Transport Museum's Fire Engine Day. Great fun. And so spent the whole day doing rides and, took it along. Will you do some rides? Yeah, we'll do rides. And spent the whole day. So at the end of the day, they slipped me some cash and said, look, we really appreciate it. Some people, they bring their appliances, but they don't want anyone touching it. Being a massive boon to the day. Go put some fuel in. It's great. So I went back on a high, pulled onto the fuel station at Tesco, filled up the tank, got into it, took the brake off. I went,
It was stuck on.
Come on, brake release. That's weird. I don't seem to have any air. Revved it up and it went bang. And then you could hear this lovely noise. Right. Good. Now, I don't know if you've ever broken down on a fuel pump, but it's very embarrassing, particularly when it's approaching rush hour and there is a queue of traffic behind you. And then you have to go in there very sheepishly and be like, hello, I'm really sorry, but I appear to have broken down on the pump. And the nice lady behind the counter goes, oh, okay, which one are you? And I'm like, you see the fire engine blocking 2 pumps? That's me.
And you can't just push it out of the way. You've brakes.
No, because the brakes are locked on. And so I was like, I phoned up the guy for recovery. He's going to be about 2 hours. They're like, oh, so then there's already a queue of vehicles behind you. And I just went and buried my head in the back of the vehicle as I saw them walking out with the cones to block off the pump. And you have all these people who are queuing behind you who are now very angry that they now have to try and force their way in. And they're just like, So I sat there for, I don't know, about a half hour, feeling utterly miserable, very embarrassed. And one of the ladies came out of the kiosk. And I'm like, oh, what now? I can't do it. And bless her, she bought me a hot chocolate and a couple of chocolate bars just to cheer me up. And I have never been so grateful for when I was just so miserable. So I thought at that point, if I'm going to do a business, I need a second truck. Now, it's just a spoiler alert here. This is a very bad idea. I did not need a second truck. What I needed to do was fix the first truck and understand why it had broken and just stay on top of that. Second truck, bad idea. So I kept an eye out on Facebook and eBay, as you do. And this one turned up, which looked a bit rough. And the bidding was starting at £500. So I was like, fine. So I sent a load of messages to the guys like, how is it? You know, is it fine? Are there any problems with it? And the guy's like, oh yeah, I've been using it as a daily. It's great. So all right, fine, chat, back and forth. And eventually went, yeah, sorry, I'll put a punt in, £500. 3 days later, I came back and was like, oh, I wonder what that fire engine went for. £500. Where is this fire engine? It is in Redruth in Cornwall. Right.
That's quite a distance for you to go and fetch it. Although it drives, so were you planning on driving it back? That
was the plan, yes. And of course, I got down there and met the guy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, no, I haven't used it in years, no." But I messaged you to say, "Is it all fine and working?" He's like, "Yeah, well, no, I haven't used it in years." So you literally said here, look here. You answer the question with, "Yes, I'm using it as a daily." He's like, "Oh." Where are you taking it back to? I'm like, Suffolk. He went, oh, you're right.
And was it all right?
Yeah. It was. I wasn't happy with it, but eventually decided that it was actually cheaper to buy it and drive it home than it was to get the train home. So got it to the end of this guy's drive. He lived on a farm, so it was about a mile to the road, and it just started to die. And you could see just on the horizon there was a fuel station. I'm like, I know it's low on fuel, but so we got it there, brimmed it, got onto the main road, and it very slowly accelerated up to full speed, and got to about 50, and the speedo stopped. I'm like, oh, that's it. And we got to the hill out of Devon, and we got there. I started going up. I'm like, oh, it's really good. It's holding its speed at 45. And my mate went, I don't think it is. So I tapped the speed and I was like 30, 20, 15. And we crawled out on the single carriageway away from Redruth at 15 miles an hour. The best I could count in my rearview mirror was 33 cars on the main A road. But after that first kind of couple of hills, the freshies we got through to it, and it just went all the way home. And he did say the floor is soft, my side. And I was like, yeah, you're a big lad. It's probably fine. When we got it back and put it into my storage unit, we lifted the carpet and it's like, the carpet was the only thing that's there. There is no floor. And so currently, it's in bits. I've got a new front for the cab to go on, a new X new stock front of the cab to go on, and I need to rebuild some of the floor, and it will go again. But it is time.
Is it the same model as the first one then, or is it completely different?
No, the second one is a Dodge G13. I don't know what that means, but it's a Dodge truck, which was then converted by a firm called Mountain Range, who only lasts about 10 years. So it's I think it's the only one of its type left. And the story goes from talking to somebody who was in the workshops when they did it. The guy in charge came down to the workshop and said, right, I've had a great idea. We're going to get rid of our old Dennises, and we're going to buy a load of the Dodge 100 Commando Series Lawries and convert them into fire engines. And the guys in the workshop said, please don't do that. We like the Dennis. Anyway, okay, I understand. And then a few months later, a load of Dodge trucks turned up. And they're like, what have you done?
I assume it were cheaper, because that's normally anytime there's a bad decision, it's money, isn't it?
Well, that's what killed Dennis off. Dennis made specialized vehicles. So you bought a fire engine from Dennis. It was constructed as a fire engine, whereas other firms, you'd buy a lorry and you'd send that lorry off to a firm who would build a fire engine onto it. So you just buy a cabin chassis, and that's the cheaper way of doing it. That's how people have done it ever since. That's your modern ones, your Scanias, your Volvos. You buy a lorry and it's converted, and that's cheaper than doing it as a limited run specialist vehicle, which is a shame.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Denny should have made coaches out of the fire engines.
I mean, they still make buses technically, so.
Mm.
But yeah, so it's a lovely old truck. It's got the same engine, and at some point when I have some free time, I will sit down, stand up, cut the metal out, and weld it all back together. But I have like 36, 37 vehicles at the moment. It's all got a bit out of hand.
Yeah, that does sound excessive.
Yeah, it definitely is. It definitely is. It is, again, at this point, it is a serious problem.
Do I remember correctly that you had a Lotus Elite at one point?
I still do, yes. I've got them. So that's a long-term project. I had this one. It had the engine swapped out for the Rover V6. What they did was they took an engine that made, for the purpose of this, let's say 150 brake, which was it made that at the very top end. A highly strong engine, and what they did was took this very light high performance engine and swapped it out for the rather large Rover V8, which generated 20 horsepower more, admittedly at the lower end, but was about 3 times the mass and weight. Cut out at the front of the car a lot of the crash structure and how the fiberglass is meant to go together to install this engine, mounted the radiator in the fiberglass rather than on the chassis rails.
Right.
And then I bought it.
Did it ever run?
Yeah, I drove it around for a lot. In fact, JM broke it. He drove it, and the fan belt snapped. And he didn't think when the temperature gauge went into the red to think to stop it. He just went, "It's one of Lawrie's vehicles," and I was like, "But the temperature gauge." Did you not think to stop it and get out of the car when it's overheating? But so it didn't do the head gasket, but it did absolutely kill the radiator. So we took the radiator out, got that rebuilt, and when we put it back in, we were like, this isn't right. Like how this all goes together. And a friend of ours got in contact and said, "Do you want to have a look at mine?" And we looked at his car and we were like, oh,
completely different.
Yeah, just and you see how the front's designed to give some idea of crash structure and strength to the nose.
Yeah,
all of physically cut out to make room for it. And you're like, oh, I mean, there is a big chunk of metal now to take any impact, but it ruined the rigidity of the front end of the car. It was a real shame. So that kind of got put on hold. Like, well, we'll definitely swap the engine out with something, possibly like a Mazda engine in it. And then on Facebook, somebody was giving away a shell. Like, first person who can come and get it, you can have the shell. I'm like, that's going to be so much easier. Went and picked up the new shell, and that's basically where it is. It's now got a new shell, and at some point, I will work out on how to put an entire interior into it and put a new engine into it.
Very nice. They are really nice cars to drive as well when they're not messed about with.
I imagine so. It's such a pretty car. It's so pretty.
My dad had the Elite, and then he had a couple of XLs as well. Afterwards. Oh yeah. And the XL is one of those cars that at the time when I had it, I just thought, oh, it's just an old car. It's not exciting about it. But now when I see them, I'm like, I wish he'd kept that one. I wish he'd kept that.
They're such cool cars. I love that whole the Elite, the Eclair, and the XL. Just absolutely, possibly for me, like peak Lotus. Just absolutely fantastic.
Would you have an Elite an XL or an Elite or an Esprit?
Oh. Both. They're such different cars because the Elite and the Eclair was such a kind of, they're not sports cars, they're Grand Tourers. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And it's such a different thing. But probably the proper car rather than the weird thing that I like.
Yeah, I don't mind Esprits, but they are too, to me, they're too much of a, that's the thing that everybody would want. I'd always go for the left field thing.
I would, but when you see the price of an Esprit, I'd go for the Esprit because just on resale value alone, and the fact that if someone was saying you can have an Esprit or an Elite, I'd be like, the Esprit, because that is big money that I will never be able to afford. Whereas the Elite's weird because they're so uncommon. Like the money varies massively. Trying to go how much is an Elite worth is difficult because they're so rare. Whereas you can go in Esprit and go, Esprits cost money.
Yeah. Too much money. You can just put them in the too much bracket. That's where they sit, like the Sierra Cosworth bracket.
Oh. But my mum's car growing up was a Sierra Estate. That was a tank. It was a tank of a car, and eventually, like all Fords, it rotted away into nothing. I think the engine lived on in a boat. But I would love a Sierra. I would love a Sierra. I know they're rubbish, but I would love a Sierra because that's the car I learned to drive in. It's what I had as a kid.
Learn to drive in a Sierra?
Yeah, well, because I was driving that around, just on car parks and since I was tiny. So I would absolutely love to have a Sierra. But if you're going to have a Sierra, I mean, you might as well go for a Cosworth and make it exciting. And then you'd need to remortgage the house. And I have a massive problem with this. I know it's stupid. I've been very lucky with the vehicles I've acquired. I've acquired stuff for rock bottom prices. Yeah. And like, for instance, my MR2, or my Turbo MR2, I had this from when I had my first MR2, and I compared it to JM's Evora. He spent, I think, 70-something thousand on the Evora. And I spent 300 quid plus kit. So let's call it 500 quid for my MR2. And certainly the Evora is 10 times better than the MR2. But is it worth 100 times the money?
Yeah, it's difficult to quantify stuff like that as well, isn't it? Because the way I'd probably sort of think about that as well is because he bought that new into the Evora. Yeah. So to me, a new car, it doesn't hold any more interest to me than an old banger. So I can't justify buying a new car when I'm quite happy with a 20-year-old snotter.
That's it. I don't have the money for it, and for everything I buy, I justify in what else I could buy for that money to give me the same level of enjoyment. And something of that money for a brand new car, it's like a steam engine. I'd love to have a traction engine, but it's like for a steamroller, it's like you're starting bare minimum for like 40 odd grand. I could buy a lot of bangers.
Well, you could buy 80.
Yeah, I could have a lot more fun with that kind of army of banger cars than I would one steam engine. As much as I'm a massive steam fanatic, it's one of those. It's justifying the money, and it's a new vehicle like that. I just can't justify it. And also, I like bangers. I like old stuff. I like stuff that you understand how it works.
Well, one of the videos I watched of yours recently, you were talking about the MG ZS. I think it was a video you did ages ago. But you said that you really like the ZRs.
I really do. I don't know why.
But you're not tempted to get one of those because while they're still cheap,
I regret not, because they've gone up in price so much recently, and they're starting to come to the money where I'm like, I want a yellow one. I would probably go for a 5-door over a 3 because I like having 5 doors that I can throw rubbish in the back and take people in. But I want one in bright yellow with the yellow sporty trim, and it's like, it is just a hatch at the end of the day. It's a very nice hatch, and I just love how they look. That entire period of MG, I love. I love the ZR. I love the ZS. I love the ZT, and I really like the TF. I like the convertible. It's a silly little car, but I really like it. That entire range, everything MG at that time, I'm like, yeah, I like how they look. I like how they drive. They were just good. They were really good.
Yeah, they did put some proper thought into them. Like,
if they'd had money, they would have been amazing.
Yeah, exactly. Like the TF, a lot of people, a lot of my circle of people are a bit older than me. Like my dad is kind of age, and they're all like, "Oh, you don't want a TF, you want an F. They're far better riding." So obviously, I went out and bought a TF because I'm not going to get what my dad's telling me to buy. Why would I do that? And I slammed mine to the floor, so it were on lowered ironback springs, and I did all sorts of stuff on it. And then I made the mistake of selling it to my dad, who has, since he's owned it, he's put the comfort spring pack on it. He's got some smaller wheels for it. He's just basically undone all my hard work into making it unsuitable for roads. that's where it goes, isn't it? Because when you get old cars, there's always a small amount of people that want to keep everything standard. But I'm finding there's more and more people that are wanting to modify things to their taste.
I'm a big fan of the, what do they call it, resto modding, like bringing things tastefully up to date. I'm not a big fan of like completely changing something, but I put a radio in that's got Bluetooth. Huge, little things like that.
Yeah.
But also, really like the MG. Really do like the TF. I did a trip around Scotland in one. It's a series to come out. And I started off being like, this is the wrong car for this. And by the end of it, I was like, I love this car so much.
Have you had to do any work on yours?
I've replaced the engine.
That's a yes then. But that might be easier than actually trying to do anything on the engine while it's still in there.
It wasn't actually that bad. It wasn't that bad to do the swap. I was driving home and it just lost power. Flashy lights. And it had been drinking oil anyway. And when we tested it, I got no compression on cylinder 3 and half compression on cylinder 2. So it burnt out the valves, or the exhaust valve, and that was. So it was just easier to get put a new block in it, and touch wood, the new block's okay.
Is it a 1.8?
Yeah.
Is it a VVC?
No. No, that everything I hear is the VVC is just trouble. And so I just went for the. Also, I'm not a big believer in like that level of, like my MR2's got about 300 horse, and that's about as much as I think you need for the roads. And the TF has an ample amount of power. You don't need any more really on the roads. It's got enough that you can do a nice little overtake. You put your foot down and go, oh, here we go. And it doesn't feel like it's trying to kill you.
But it will do eventually. They all do.
Oh, I'm sure it will, but it doesn't feel like it's plotting quietly in the background. It's not actively. I've driven a friend of mine's got a Mini that he has modified. It's got the A series, much bigger engine in it, and I drove that for maybe 10 minutes, and I was like, no, thank you. Like, it's an amazing car, and what you can do with it is incredible. But I have never driven a vehicle before that is like up front with you. You get in it, it's like, I am trying to kill you. You drive me, I will try you. You put your thing, and you're like, whoa, it is an aggressive car. Whereas the TF is quiet. It's just like, and certainly the F is more comfortable, but I like the more angry look of the TF. It looks a bit more like it's like a proper car rather than a hairdresser's car. And also it is a hairdresser's car, let's be honest. The F and the TF are definitely hairdresser's cars. Although, have you seen my Nissan 100NX?
No, I haven't.
So they're disappearing very quick. That's got the engine gearbox got to go back in it. But it has T-tops. It has a 1.6 litre engine. It has the springs, which it's like a sofa. Like you get into it and it goes, and that's how it's restored. It's about 6 miles off the ground to start off with. And you drive this car and you're like, who, Nissan? Who were you building this for? You put the T-tops on it, so the T-tops are cool. But it has no performance. And you go into the corner and there's no handling. Because you go in the corner.
I'll tell you who they were building that for. My math teacher at school, that's who had one of them.
Okay, obviously that and hairdressers, because that's the hairdresser car. I'd love it. I'd absolutely love it. It's a fantastic car, despite being awful. But I love T-tops, and it's just such a weird thing that. And I've got the brochure for it as well. And it's got it, parked up like in Cannes next to all these luxury super boats. Like nobody with a super yacht would buy this car. Why is it here? Is this what the cleaner's driven up to in something? I just do not understand who this car was for.
Maybe they would. Maybe they'd buy it as a place saver. So they drive off in the Maserati and somebody parks around it. That's all it is. Yeah, there's something to be said, like bad cars. I'm going to start off talking about bad cars, and then I'm going to tell you what car I bought last. And I want you to judge whether I'm talking about a bad car or whether I'm linking them unfairly. There's something about bad cars that I think a good car. Somebody once said, I can't remember what it was, but when you've got a tool that does a job well, you don't even notice it and you forget about it. But if you've got a tool that does a job badly, you remember that. And I think that's the same with cars. It's got a character. So my latest purchase, which is a ZS diesel, is exactly that, really, because it's not got any performance when compared to the V6. It's just got that chunk of torque that just pushes you for a brief amount of time.
Facelift or not facelift?
Facelift. Oh, I don't like Mark 1s.
No, I really like the Mark 1 ZS and ZT, but I don't like the ZS. Oh, no, that's a good car. That's a really good. I think they look cool.
Yeah, it looks nice. It's got the 180 body kit on it, so it's got the
nice. That's really cool. Is it the hatch or the full saloon?
It's the hatch. Now, because when I was watching your video before, I was thinking I really like the saloons more than the hatches. But since I've had the hatch, I thought actually the hatches are better. See, because the headlining needs doing, and I can get the headlining out of the bin.
No, surely not on an MTF. No, not it. I would never have believed it. They're genuinely cool cars, and they look great. They're really that cannot even that's offensive to even have mentioned that as a possibility of a bad car. They are proper good cars. What'd you get out of the diesel, like MPG wise?
Oh crikey! I can't really say, to be honest. It's got to be high 40s at least.
Oh, that's not bad. I mean, let's travel around.
The reason why I can't really say is because for most of the time I've owned it, the speedo's not worked.
I've heard this that they is yours just a bad earth? Because I've had this before that it was just the bad earth under the fuse box. Took it off, put it back, and the speedo started working.
Well, when I did finally investigate it and didn't just rely on my phone telling me how fast they were going, the little module that sits on the top of the gearbox wasn't attached to the top of the gearbox.
That's important.
It is, doesn't it? I tend to find things need to be attached to each other for it to work. Yeah,
that does make a difference.
That is now attached. So fingers crossed.
See, one of the things I've always gone by is you can have a lot of fun in a slow car trying to drive it fast, but there's no fun trying to drive the fast car slow.
That is true.
Even if something is clinically brilliant. So a friend of mine, he was a big believer in BMWs, like a big fan of the BMW world. And BMW was perfection. Anything that wasn't BMW wasn't worth it. But, he was a clinical driving machine. It was a good GT car, a good performance car, He hated my Reliant, like absolute frothing at the mouth rage that he hated. It was that bad. But I would take the Reliant every single time over the BMW because it's fun.
Yes.
Just because something is not on paper brilliant, that it's slow, and let's be honest, anything that is a Reliant is always going to be a bit naff. That's not what the experience is. The experience is driving something that you enjoy and you think is fun. Because it's not fast. You have to think what you're doing. Like that car when I drove it round the Lake District and the where do we go in it? Doesn't matter. When driving on the Lake District, you have to think with the corner you're coming up to us. Is this speed okay for this corner, or do I need to brake a bit more? Because you are aware that most cars, if you think, if I muck this corner up, it's going to be a bit nasty, but I'll be okay. The Reliant, you're very aware that you're on a small metal chassis in basically a fiberglass coffin. And if you muck it up, that is the end.
Coffin.
And you really have this in your mind when you're driving it up. I need to be careful on this corner because if I muck it up, that's the end. It's not, it'll be a bit of a smash and I'll lose my car. It will be, no, that is the end. And I know that's not the justification to really enjoy the car and for it to be a good car.
Being afraid of your life.
It makes you appreciate everything a bit more, doesn't it? If you're terrified. If you're scared of every moment in it, I really appreciate this lovely sunny day. It might be the last one I see.
Out of your fleet of cars, how many of them are roadworthy?
On the road, I think there's, including the fire engine, I think there's 6 currently on the road. And there's 2 more which are sitting ready to go. But I just haven't MOT'd them because they're just sitting. They need a bit of work.
So out of those 8, then, what's your favourite and which is your least favourite? I'm going to make you choose your favourite child and your least favourite child.
Dupes is my favourite. Like, I will go homeless before I lose that fire engine. Least favourite. I don't.
I'll let you think about it.
My default answer would be my Mini Cooper. It's a a 04 plate Mini, because when they came out, I hated them because they're huge. They didn't live up to like what a Mini was. And then when they were on the roads, everyone had one. I was like, well, I hate them because the masses got them, and I don't like, because they're so everywhere.
Yeah.
And then I got mine for 200 quid. And it is one of the best cars I've ever owned, because the amount of abuse I've given that car, and it just keeps going. And I've got Unisport Royals on it, and I have gone into corners more times than I've gone, oh, I've royally mucked this up, this is bad. And it just goes whoop, and goes round. Like the handling characteristics of that car are phenomenal. It's just no, I do know what I'll get rid of. I'll get rid of the X-Trail. Like, the X-Trail is a useful pulling thing, but it's just not it's just not part of my fleet.
Okay.
It's a useful tow vehicle. Whereas, the Mini, though, love it.
Love it.
And we took it to one of the last London to Brighton Mini runs to kind of be like, oh, there'll be a load there, and kind of get over this like snobbishness of, oh, there's loads of them. And it turned out that there were very few of that era on Mini Cooper. I was like, well, actually, it turns out it is a bit of a rare car after all, and actually I'm rather happy with it.
So is it a Cooper or a Cooper S, did you say?
No, it's just the Cooper.
Just the Cooper. So I quite fancy one of the early Cooper S's with the supercharger on them.
So you see, a friend of mine, his neighbour's got one, same generation, but it is the S with the supercharger. And he brought it down, said to his neighbour, do you mind if I borrow it? And the neighbour was like, go for it.
What a neighbour. That's quite a cool.
I know, right? So he brought it down and we went out together, just driving. And so we pulled away from junction and I floored it. And I was expecting this thing to just be like there behind me.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. And sure, he was catching. But it wasn't the rate that I was expecting. And I was expecting to be, he's still there. We pulled over to where we were going for breakfast, and I'm like, it's definitely faster, but it's not what. And he said exactly the same. He's like, you went, I floored it after you. Obviously, you were expecting to go, and I wasn't. But it's like we would have got you, but you were a god. Yeah, and I was genuinely disappointed. I appreciate. I mean, those engine bays, there is no more space in them. That is packaging. I'd never want to do a big job on that because it's awful. But I don't know where they put the supercharger on it. Like it must be in the boot or something. But so I appreciate you. It's not a performance car, and you're not going to put that much boost into it realistically. But I was genuinely disappointed how it wasn't as big a jump in performance as I was expecting.
Yeah. I bet you can change sprockets and stuff there to get more. Sure you can. Yeah. That should be your next project.
No, because it works. You don't understand. It currently works.
Oh yeah, don't spoil it. Somebody has actually told us who did the voices on Thomas the Tank Engine. So it was Ringo in season 1, and then Michael Angelis. Not Michelangelo. That's someone different. Oh, and then somebody else has contradicted that and saying Ringo did seasons 1 and 2. I don't look anymore in case there's a big comment fight.
I'm going to go out here and go that Ringo did seasons 1 and 2 because obviously I know these things.
Just see if there was any other interesting comments on there. I'm scrolling through them super fast.
I like that somebody was joining with the stream and is now gone because their son's getting married in the morning, but their priority was to tune into the stream.
There must be one of your fans, not one of mine. Malcolm Martin says, Lawrie, I think an Elvis Stalwart sounds like a perfect project for you. No,
but I do like old Elvises because they're so pretty. No, I don't need any more project. I do. I'm at that stage that I get offered vehicles kind of semi-regularly now. People are like, oh, do you want to take this on? This, and I'm like, no, I don't have space. Or there is some stuff turning up. There are new things turning up.
So I know you've got some trains, but I assume you don't keep them in the lockup thing. I assume they're kept at a railway place somewhere. Yeah, they're.
In fact, actually, they're all at the moment at the Whitwell and Reefham Railway. Because the little one went over for a gala, and we then had our LMM day 2 weekends back, which was great fun. And the new ones arrived there as well. And the one we saved out for Scrapyard is being restored there as well. So it was nice having like the fleet together.
Most people take cars, you take trains, a fleet of trains.
There was a moment when the new one turned up and my other one was parked next door to it. And there's this, you sat there being like, I've got a photo somewhere of taken for the footplate one as I'm driving it away from the other. Be like, I own this one, and I own that one, and I own that one, and it was like the kid in me, like who lives like, you know, he's about this close to the edge at all times of coming out because I'm a big kid, but
like the whole cone is smaller and not green.
Yeah, exactly. But I like, if I could go, I didn't have a good time when I was growing up at school. I got bullied a lot and I didn't have any friends. I would love to be able to go back and talk to that kid who didn't know what was wrong with him, who didn't know why nobody liked him, and like was trying his hardest. I'd be like, don't worry about it, mate. It's going to be fine. You're going to own locomotive one day. I would not have been able to, like, that would have been a complete, I don't even know. It'd been a mental breakdown kind of level of news. Yeah. You're going to literally own 3 things, and they're going to be yours to look after. Like the brain would go, the brain just would not be able to deal with it. And it's been so nice. Like the guys at Whitwell Reefham have been so nice. They getting the 48 ready and painted. Like they have given so much of their own time to be part of it. They put up with me and my lot. And it's just one of the nicest environments. And a load of the guys who have fans on my channel have come along to get involved in restoring the others. Okay. And it's just, they're an amazing group of people. And you go along, they've also got a bar and a restaurant on site, which is great. So you just go in there, have a drink and something to eat, and then get back to it. But they're wonderful. They're wonderful things. I just seen one of the comments come up. You're going to have friends. Yeah, I assumed the friends was going to happen at some point. It was, but the locos for little Lawrie would have been a big thing because he didn't have any friends, so he didn't know what he was missing. Whereas locos, he'd seen locos. Would I own a 125 Houton Classics? No, because it's far too big. There's I was chatting to the group at the Combe Valley who own 5 of the things, and the amount of fuel they run just on idle is obscene. They use the amount of fuel in an hour just on idle that mine will use doing everything like at full chat for a day. Was it a half hour? It's an obscene amount. I was like, oh yeah, and they have one at each end, and it's one of those you just watch the gauge doing this, going fudum, 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 fudum.
To be honest, that sounds like a ZSV6. That's what happens on them if you're booting them.
They do. Doing that video with it driving that around, it was like, I got full tank fuel. This is going to be great. And then you boot it a few tons, and then you don't have my MR2 is the same. Like particularly that last quarter, like I can watch when I've gone to boost in my MR2 on that last quarter. Like most of the time it's fine, and that last quarter it's like and boost and boost. Oh, I've got no fuel.
See, that's a good thing though, because if that was a Rover, when it got to a quarter of a tank, you wouldn't know whether that actually was a quarter or whether that was empty. Yeah. Because you always get to that point because nobody ever put more fuel in than that. So nowadays, there's just nothing on gauge after that. It's quarter or none. That's what it's like on mine.
my mate's MR2 has got the wonderful fault with its fuel gauge that at full, it's 3/4 and empty is 1/4 of a tank. That's what the gauge shows. So he's been at the fuel tank when he got it and was like at the fuel station filling it up until it was literally coming out because thought it was airlocked or something. He's like, oh, and they are slow on the Toyotas to respond, but at full it is 3/4. And then when he ran out of fuel, he realised that to empty it is at 1/4.
They're the kind of faults you want on a car.
Yeah, one that you don't ever fix because you know how it works. So that's not a fault that you need to fix because you understand it.
That is true. Although that did bite me in the arse because that happened on my TF. It was at 1/4 or 0. There were nothing in between. And I said my dad bought it. And then he said, we went to a show the other weekend and he was like, oh, why don't you take TF? You've not driven it for a while. So I got in it, said 1/4 of a tank. So I'm like, when was the last time you put petrol in, Dad? And he's like, oh, I can't remember. And I'm like, do I risk it or do I have to come put something?
When I picked mine up from having some work done on it with my mates, they went, oh, it's a bit low on fuel. So whatever, got into it, drove it. And I drove it for a bit and looked down at the gauge. I was like, it's not actually come up to above empty yet. I suspect I'm on fumes. There are limits of it's a bit empty. And by the way, there's nothing in it.
Yes. Yeah. Right then, should we try this quiz then?
Oh yeah. So this was the chat that was going to be take about 20 minutes. Yeah.
Yes, that's it. 50 minutes later. Right, let me present this screen. It should allow me to do it in such a cool way. And here we go. It's the top one, Simon. There you go. So can you see that on your screen?
Oh, I can see that. Yes.
Fantastic. Right. So, I almost forgot, Lawrie. There's another video for me to play before we start playing. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Locomotive or naughty motive?
Oh dear. What do I spend my time doing?
Oh no!
I hope that doesn't put you off.
I'm going to be useless at this as well. Right.
Right then. So, question one. Oh, well, name number one. Jesse James.
Yeah,
Go
that's
on.
definitely a crim.
He is definitely a crim. Look, there he is. That's what it looks
I only know that from Pokemon.
Pokemon has a lot to answer to for. Question two, Louis Brennan.
Oh, I'm going to go criminal. Don't know.
No, he invented the monorail.
Really? Did not know that.
That's apparently true, but don't quiz me anymore on it.
Fair enough.
Question. Oh, don't break. Oh, what's he doing? Hang on.
It's time for me to.
There we go. Question three.
Oh no, isn't Boa Kinton Brunel? That's definitely no. He's not just a locomotive designer. He was a designer of everything.
He was quite a big designer of everything. Weren't he? Look, there he is with his little.
That would have been very embarrassing to get wrong.
He would have been. Question four: the Newton brothers.
If they're not, that's got to be a criminal gang, right? The Newton brothers destroying gravity. Yes, there we go. Robbing gravity from where it was.
The Newton brothers stealing gravity since 1920. Razzers, we're floating about because of you. Question five: W. Pearson E. Agar.
It's got to be a designer or something that sounds like a designery name.
Crims.
Ah, damn.
Crims.
That must have been some design work there.
Well, that is true. Yeah, you could say anybody's a designer though. But apparently, there was a train from London to Paris, and it had got safes full of gold on it.
Yeah,
and they replaced some of the gold from the safes with lead shot.
That's very clever.
But then they did get caught 2 days later, so not that clever.
Not so, yeah. I mean, good idea, though. Good idea.
Yeah. Just terribly executed by the sounds of it. Question 6: Joseph Locke.
Let's go criminal again.
Railway pioneer.
What did Joseph Locke do? Google.
I don't know. If you could have asked me that yesterday, I could have told you.
Railway.
He looks remarkably like Brunel as well on that picture. I'm not saying there's a type. Question.
Planning of Stockton, Darlington, under the leadership of George Stephenson. Oh, he's a big person.
A big person.
Yeah.
He didn't invent locks.
No, well, a bit too late for that.
Question 7: Nigel Greasley.
Oh, Gresley.
Is that how you spell it? Let's say it.
Yeah, Mr. Gresley or Sir Nigel. I mean, you did miss the Sir as well because you said this is one I do know. Yes, designer of locomotives, including the fastest steam locomotive in the world.
Ta-da! The Mallard.
There you go.
What's the speed it did? Was it 127?
It's 126.5.
126.5.
Although Gresley always said that he thought that was just a spike caused by a bump or something. He never believed it was 126.5. So, which is why the Germans have something I think that did 125. And so that's up for whatever debate.
Controversy.
Yeah.
Question 8. The Durant brothers.
Let's go with they designed something.
Oh, they blew up the money they were trying to rob. They basically blew up the whole vault. And then because they got all confuddled and didn't know what were happening, they shot 3 people and then they got caught.
Nice.
Fools. The fools. I've not been adding your score up. What an idiot.
Oh, 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10 apart from that one that you've got wrong.
Well, Adam, we're on question 8.
Yeah. Details, just details. Question 9.
Stevenson. Yes. I mean, if you ask the designer of Sans Perel, he was definitely a criminal because when for the Rainhill trials for the Sans Perel, the cylinders were cast by Stevenson's foundry. So, and during the thing, those cylinders happened to fail and break. So, from the Timothy Ackworth, was it? Was that who Sans Perel was? Yeah, from his point of view, very unhappy, and Stevenson was definitely a crim.
Ooh, so controversy. So both.
So both for that, yeah.
Both of them. I wish I could go back and edit it, but I can't. Ronnie Biggs.
Crim.
Big crim.
Yes. We know that one.
Yeah, and he kind of half got away with it as well, didn't he, really?
Yeah, I mean...
For a bit.
I quite a thing to have... Well, they don't call it the Great Train Robbery for nothing.
They don't, do they? It's because they'd run out of words by the time they got to that one. We'd already had like the small train robbery and the slightly bigger than the first train robbery.
The inconvenient train robbery.
The inconvenient train robbery.
Yeah, they've done the afternoon, the morning, sunset.
The lunchtime train robbery. Well, there we go. Well done. You got 9, I think. We'll say 9.
I'll go with 9. That's fine. I disagree, but yeah, that's fine.
I can make it 8 if you disagree.
No. 9 sounds great. 9 sounds great.
It's going to go on your permanent record and everything. I'll warn you.
Yeah, that's fine. I don't mind. It's fine. Well, just a big barefaced lie on the permanent record. I mean, who doesn't do that on their TV, really?
So, what's your next project then?
Big projects. What is the next big project? Well, the biggest thing we've got going at the moment is the locomotive that the community helped buy from being scrapped. The owner was going to cut it up into scraps, so we have that to get running. The hope is we're going to get that sorted over the next 6 months or so. Assume everything kind of falls into place for that. So that's the next big thing, and that's 28 tons. That's as my project goes, that's a big project. So that should be fun. That's the next big thing. There's a couple of other vehicles going to be turning up on the channel, which are going to require work as well. So they're fairly big, and I've got a couple of trips planned as well.
Ooh, have you got any more of those? Because you did a couple of £500 car challenges, didn't you? You got any more of those planned? We have one more planned that we're in the stages of planning at the moment. So there's one to come out that Charles, who was in the comments, maybe in the comments, Charles is going to edit for us. Or is currently editing. I think he was in the comments. Don't know. Anyway. So he's currently working on that. And then we have plans for the next one later this year. Cool.
Which will be a kind of a soft reboot to it to kind of get it going again because it's been a few years. But yeah, because I'm all about like having good times with your mates in cars, and again, stuff that doesn't have to break the bank. You don't have to spend stupid money on a car to have a good time with it. And something that's old and a bit stupid will kind of do just as well, especially if you just want to trundle around to go see the sights.
Didn't one of them have a Suzuki Swift for one of these trips?
Yeah, he did.
Is that still going?
I don't know what the story with that car is. He came back from the trip and was so upset with the car because it was not a good car that he kind of locked it, jumped into his other car to go home, threw the key somewhere, and never recovered the key. I never found the key again. He just lobbed the key somewhere, and eventually it was picked up and I assume taken to the giant breakers in the sky.
Poor little thing.
Oh, such a shame. It's such a nice little car. I really love that generation Swift.
Yeah,
It was really
yeah,
upsetting because we looked really hard to find him that car, something that was his level of weird that he'd really enjoy, and he just didn't gel with it. He just did not get on with it.
Was that the same trip where someone had a Ford car?
Yeah, with the slipping clutch.
Yes, that was it.
Yes, which after pulling out the guy with the Suzuki out of a ditch that he'd driven it into, rather than stopping in the parking place, he was like, "I'll just pull onto the side of the road in the moors." So the KA's clutch was not good. Like, it was definitely slipping. But pulling the Swift out of the ditch
didn't cure it, surprisingly.
I did not. I drove it when it was home because I was like, "Oh, you are talking such rubbish. You're such a whatever." And I drove it, and I was like, "No. Anything more than like 10% throttle, anything more than that, it was just." We're not really moving here, right? It was that stage that you put the handbrake on. And you're like, right, let's see what gears I can do first. Right, in second, third, fourth, fifth. No, it's not good. So with the handbrake on, we can keep the engine running in drive in all gears. Right, cool. Definitely time to do a clutch, mate.
So at least it died before it rotted away, because that seems to be Car's favourite things, isn't it?
Yeah, to be fair, that one was relatively solid. And
was it?
The guy did the clutch on it and sold it on for a profit, which in my circles that's unheard of.
Profit? What's that?
I know, right? I mean, not for the amount of time and effort he put. Actually, to be fair, for the amount of time and effort he put into it, yeah, he did make a profit on that car, and that is very not us.
Yeah, he should be banned from your little circle.
I know, right? We don't do that. We don't. Also, a hateful car. I do not like the KA.
No, I'm not a particular fan of him. I don't like the shape. I don't like the swoopiness. It's like the Mark 1 Focus. I don't like the dashboard where it swoops down.
The thing I hate, dislike most about that is the clock in the middle. That they're like, "Oh, we didn't put a clock in. I've got this little one here. Let's just put it here and yeah, hammered it in. Yeah, that's sorted." Fine.
What about motorbikes?
I had a motorbike. I had in lockdown. I bought an MZ, an East German thing, and it went to Matt's house for him to work on during lockdown, and he stripped it all down, and that's as far as that went.
So have you got a bike license then? Are you a bike? Oh,
nope. Because the plan was to do it on that bike, and as it never turned up, that was kind of the end of that.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. I thought about getting into it on several occasions, and every time I come back to, I could just shut a door and turn the heater on slightly. In all fairness, the main reason I've avoided it is I think I'd be a fair weather motorcyclist, and that's the worst kind of motorcyclist, is someone who doesn't go out enough to be experienced on the roads or experienced on the bike. And I think it would be one of those things that if I did have it, I'd probably take it out a few times a year when it's a nice evening. I'd be like, I fancy taking the bike out. And then you're the worst kind of rider because you're not comfortable with the roads, the bike, or how to drive it. And and that's kind of was my, when Matt and Morgan were on the channel and they had their bikes and they were doing stuff, that was I would go out with them. But since they've both left the channel, although I've got other friends who are into bikes, I just don't have that desire to do it. I know at the moment I don't have the time. I've got the electric bike, which if I really want to do something, I can take it off road and trundle around at 15 miles an hour, which is fine. But I didn't know. But even that, I've quite enjoyed the electric bike, but I use that to go to work and home, and that's about it. I just do not have the time at the moment for it. And so I love the idea of it, and I like the idea of going out on it. But I just know realistically at the moment I don't have the time for it, and I just wouldn't be a good enough a motorcyclist to really get into it. And also the bike that interests me was something that was built in East Germany and is actually screwed together with flathead screws.
Yes, they are a bit industrial, aren't they?
No, industry has bolts, like flathead screws or something. It's just a disaster waiting. I love it. I think it's such a cool bike. So I'd love to have it done, and I'd love to try and all through it. I just, at the moment at least, I don't have the time for it, and I feel like I just wouldn't be. Yeah, I think I'd be a risk.
Yeah, I agree with that. There is a lot of people that literally will just drive their, I'm going to say Harleys, but obviously there's other types of bikes that show-offs buy. Just drive them to a coffee shop once every so often. I don't actually go out when it's raining. My dad's kind of not the same sort of league, but if I ask him, are we going out on bikes, he'll look at his weather app and he'll go, oh, 10% chance of rain. I'm not going to go out if it's 10% chance of rain.
Yeah, I think that's how I'd be. He'd be like, it's not a really nice day and I'm not particularly interested. It'd be like, it's a really nice evening. Yeah, we'll go through a lap round here, go to the pub and have a coke and come home kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's not the right attitude for having a bike. Is, if you're having a bike, you need to be good with the bike. You need to be experienced with the bike, and you need to be experienced and comfortable with your bike.
Yes.
And I don't think I'd be there.
Yeah. Cool.
Although I've got all of my leathers and my helmet here ready for it.
Do you just dress up every so often just to remember what they feel like?
No, that's the worst mistake. I did an interview with a member of the press talking about owning a fire engine, because he stumbled across the channel, and he came and did an interview, and we took it out to Morrison's, for to do take it food shopping, blah blah blah, and he wrote this thing, and for the photos got dressed up in the stuff, and chatted to him and said, okay, if we go to a show or stuff, we might put on the uniforms and stuff, just be part of it. And he sent me a copy of it, and he had written, he enjoys dressing up in his fireman's uniform and driving around. It's like, no, do not print. And he ended up being printed. And I was like, you have made me into the fire appliance circles are relatively I don't want to say straight laced, but they don't suffer false gladdening. Like, you have made me seem like the enemy to the circles. I do not dress up as a firefighter and drive around in this truck. If I'm at a show and it's appropriate, I might put the overalls on. It's like, I might do like what we have done before as a group of us, have all put them on and walked around for a laugh and then immediately taken them off.
So the warning there is be careful with the press, because they're not very good at filtering stuff, are they?
No. And you tell them one thing and it's like, oh, don't write that. And they write that. But yeah, that was a terrible mistake. It was something along the lines of, we have legitimately, we went to the local chippy in it, pulled up, and he went, oh, you guys, you work hard, blah, blah, blah. You can have it on the house. And we're like, no. That's a 40-year-old fire engine. That's my baby. We're just out for a jolly. We're not firefighters. I'm just an idiot who bought it. So we had a good natter with him. In the end, he just gave it to us anyway. It's like, you made my night, lad. Came and had a look around it. And so that made it into it's like dresses up as a firefighter, and once it's worked, he's got free fish and chips. I'm like, no, that's not what happened.
Local man scams takeaways out.
Yeah, that's exactly what he came across. I'm like, that's not how it happened.
What other vehicles are you thinking of buying so you can scam local businesses?
Well, obviously an ambulance has got to be the next way, or a police car.
I'd say fire engine is the most interesting one, because everything else is just normal car van based stuff.
See, people have said about an ambulance, but an ambulance to me, there's the fire engine is a hero vehicle, right? That literally goes and rescues people and saves, it takes the firefighters there, and without that appliance, they can't do their job. That is a key piece of the equipment, and it's a glory machine. The ambulance, whilst the ambulance is still a hero machine because it saves lives, the paramedic can do aspects of their job without it. But also, there's a lot more kind of a stigma of the end with it, because obviously people don't make it to hospital. Yeah, and it just doesn't have that same kind of, because you're aware of that, it doesn't have that kind of same kind of hero status to it. Whereas the fire engine is, they're the same to an ambulance. But no, my RS, there are people alive today who are only alive because of that appliance, because that got the firefighters to the incident in time, and because they survived. They've had kids, and those people are alive today. and obviously it's the same with the ambulance, but I feel the fire engine's got a much more kind of much more appeal in that regard, that it literally has gone in and saved a group of people, whereas the ambulance has pulled like one person at a time. And we really should respect our firefighters. Obviously I am a fireman on the Steam Railways, but not a firefighter. They are amazing heroes of it. Like anyone in the emergency services are heroes today, but those guys are amazing what they go and do, and like the risks they throw themselves into. And we celebrate our firefighters, we do, but we don't celebrate the machines, which obviously not as important as the people, but the machines are on par. They're important parts of that. We should celebrate those machines as well. And
definitely
that's why I got the fire engine. Actually, also it was cheap and it was a lot of metal, and I was like, but, it was one of those things. I'd ummed and ahed about it for almost a year, I think, and I realized I'd rather be one of these people who had tried it and it failed and walked out of going, buying a fire engine is a terrible mistake, which by the way it is. But I'd rather be that person who went, I tried it, it failed, it was a mistake, than the person who went, I wonder what would have happened if I bought that.
Yeah. There's no good being a what if guy, is there?
No, exactly.
Just be skint instead. Be skint and homeless.
Yeah, but with a fire engine.
But with a fire engine that brakes are stuck on at a petrol station.
The second time, when I finished doing the idea of proms and weddings, was I went to do a wedding with it, and I broke down 5 miles away from picking up the bride.
Well, at least you'd not already picked them up. That'd have been.
I don't know, mate. I genuinely don't know. You try having that phone call. Hi, slight problem. Going to be late. How late? Quite a while. Not a good phone call you ever want to have.
Which is a good reason not to do weddings unless you've got a backup.
I mean, it wouldn't have helped because I was like 45 minutes away from base at that point. So by the time you got the other one and got there, it was too late for it anyway. But it's
never mind. You could have took Reliant down.
I'm sure that would have worked.
It is white, isn't it, as well? I think
it's beige.
Well,
I'm going to paint it because honestly, it's the car that I've had the most near misses in, because it's that kind of. People don't see it. It's such a beige color, but I've had people pull out on it, and you're like, I'm not. Again, you have that moment of, oh well, if this happens, this is it.
Back to the copying again.
Yeah, pretty much. Although it is better that the other 3-wheelers that they made, there is a company called Bond, set up by Lawrie Bond, excellent name, and his car was a 3-wheeler, which was entirely fiberglass. The only chassis in it was at the rear where the engine was. So it had a Hillman imp engine which sat on a rear axle, and that was all the metal. The rest of it was fiberglass. And you're like,
how bendy must that have been?
I mean, it was thick fiberglass, but still, it was. But you had like there's no chassis. I mean, it won't rot, but there's this, like the front wheel is bolted in with 4 bolts into the fiberglass. That's the front strut comes up, and it's into the fiberglass. You're like, no, I don't want to drive that, but thank you very much. That's lovely.
Composite, like Formula One.
Yeah, no. I mean, you've seen how they crash. That's also not good.
Did you watch Formula One?
On occasion. To be honest, I'm so busy with trying to run the channel with the vehicles I've got and the other stuff that I want to do, my volunteering and trying to have some idea of social life, that it'll be one of those things. Occasionally I'll see like my landlords, they watch it. So if I'm in the right place at the right time, I'll sit down and watch some of it. But it's more interesting in the last couple of seasons because there's been stuff actually going on. Whereas when Hamilton was just winning everything, it was a bit pointless to be like. Whereas at least now there's fights going on. The cars seem to be a bit more even, or at least it's a bit more exciting at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. The draw to Formula One for me is like the different ideas and designs that they come up with and stuff. But it seems nowadays you don't get half as much differences.
I think when you look closely, you can see that the design language has gone in is quite strikingly different, like in particularly the way the wings and such are put together. But then somebody comes up with a good idea, and then next year everybody does it. Yeah.
There were things like when Renault had the mass damper thing, which meant the front end of the car were more stable. And they had that for a couple of years, and they were, we'll ban that. It's a movable aerodynamic device, even though it's in the nose of the car.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's always been the story, hasn't it? Like all the way back, you look at what like Lotus cars, where they were, kind of like with ground effect cars. You can't do that. Yeah, it's working too well. You can't do it.
Well, we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes, Lawrie.
That's been a good natter.
It has been a good natter, and thank you for coming along.
All right, so I think maybe you've managed about 15% of your own live stream.
I like it that way. Look how much water I've managed to drink. You're helping my water intake. So, yes, thank you for joining us. It's been enlightening. And to anybody that is currently subscribed to me and not to Lawrie, go and subscribe to Lawrie because, well, I was going to say you need the subscribers, but
I mean, I do. I'm a poor YouTube channel.
Go and subscribe to him. He's got some very interesting things if you're mechanically minded and you like trains. I watched the one today where you went to your childhood train spotting.
Oh, that was good fun, actually. Yeah.
And that to me is like a bit of an eye-opener about what spotting trains is like, because now, this was a question I was going to ask you, actually. You'd put little idents on what type of train it was, and it had a name on most of them as well. Is that a thing? Do they all get names?
Depends on the company. Like my ones all have names, but yeah, yes and no. Like it's interesting. One of the companies seems to name all of their engines. They all seem to have names, and one of them seems to be a bit more hit and miss. So, like when I was training spotting when I was a kid and sitting on the platform, all the passenger ones, they all had a name on the side. So I had a little, had my notepad, and you could say, "Oh, I've seen." They all have local people. Yeah. So yeah, there's some do, some don't. It's a hit and miss.
Is there a database that you sort of cross-reference them on, or do you just, is it literally on the train that you see them?
I just saw it and went, oh, that's such and such. I remember that. There was one that went past, and I was like, I cannot read that. So I had to go do a quick Google and go, what is the name of 6 blah, 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 blah.
And people knew, and it was on the interwebs.
Yeah, always. There was a photo of it somewhere. I was just like, that's the name. That's fine. I can do that.
Well, again, thank you for joining, Lawrie, and I will hopefully catch up with you later.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for having us. It's been good fun.
No, it's been great. And yes, thank you for blessing my tiny channel with your massive presence, not in a rude way.
I'm sure in the comments somebody will make the comments, so it'll be fine.
So I shall push you back into the green room, and then you can sit there for a bit if you want.
Oh, I'll chill out back.
I shall catch you in a minute. And to everybody that's joined the live stream and chatted, I'm sorry I've not read many of your comments out today because we've been busy talking, which is nice when you get a guest that's quite chatty. I liked it. It's been a very enjoyable experience. No doubt if people have missed this and they're watching it back, just look at the live chat while you're watching it back. There's loads of comments on there. So hello to everybody I missed joining, and hello to everybody that I don't know that have joined. And I shall hopefully be doing another one of these in a couple of weeks. So to play you out, I'm going to play you out with an advert. You might have seen it before. I don't think Lawrie will have seen it before. I think he's already finding my random nonsense funny every so often. So yes, I'll play you out with the an advert.
It's not crumpet.
It's not crumpet. It's not crumpet. It's not crumpet. It's not crumpet.
It's not crumpet.
It's not crumpet.
This has been a broadcast on behalf of the This Is Not a Crumpet organisation of Great Britain. Remember, if it's not a crumpet, it's a pikelet. And if it's not a pikelet, it's probably a crumpet.
It's not crumpet.